When was the first time you met Tupac?
The first time was one night we was going in the House of Blues, and I believe D'Angelo was playing there. D'Angelo or maybe somebody like George Clinton, and we was going into the House of Blues, and he was there. And I guess it was one of them nights, we never really had a problem getting in the House of Blues, but it was one of them nights where it was a little extra on the security, and actually the security guy that I knew, he wasn't there. And then when we got there, it's like it was a little, they was getting a little iffy. And then we seen Pac, and he was like, "Yeah, well, we all together, they with us." And then we went up in the House of Blues, and that was the first time I met him.
Did Tupac perform that night or no?
He didn't perform. No, we was all just hanging out.
Um,
I said, I think it was somebody like George Clinton or somebody was there. It was, D'Angelo, George Clinton, somebody like that.
what is some of the stuff y'all did that night when y'all was at the House of Blues?
Just hanging out, drinking Hennessy, and just chopping it up. You know, trying to bag some broads and all that. The usual.
Did Tupac ever tell you personally how much he respected you and how much you inspired him?
Yeah, because at one point, we was trying to set up a deal where us and the Outlaws would do an album together, and we actually had did a song. Uh, I don't know if the song ever came out, but it was on one of the albums that Tupac that his peoples put out his after his untimely demise, and we did a song with the Outlaws. So the time that we was in the studio and we drinking and we chopping it up, everybody share war stories, throw around accolades and all that, because it was me and Scorp and Pac and then some of the Outlaws, and yeah, he chopped it up, showed us real respect. I mean, he's a good, respectable dude. Like, a lot of people that hear about Pac, and like you would hear one thing, but if you have a chance to sit down and talk to him, he's a totally different type of brother. He's more of a thinker. You like the average person would think that he's more like an action guy, like he could just he'll make a move. To me, he came across as more of a thinker than a guy that would just do something like on impulse. Like he it seemed to me like he would put a little thought in before he actually do something.
Right, right. So before Tupac was murdered, he was trying to help you get a record deal, right?
Yeah, we the deal was basically set up. We had the whole deal set up. We was going to do a deal. It was going to be me, Scorp, and the Outlaws, and we was going to do an album. But then after he passed, of course, it all fell by the wayside because he was basically the anchor. So what it would be, we would do the album, and then the whole thing would be banking on Pac do a feature here and there, and then that would have been that was basically the whole gist of what the deal was going to be. Just they basically was going to do the deal, but it was all predicated on maybe Pop could do a feature. So that's what it was all about.
Was it going to be on Death Row or was it going to be on the label Tupac was working on, Machiavelli Records?
No, no, no. It was on a label that was out of Chicago. Actually, it was called Straight Game Records, and that they had that was they had the deal all set up. It was called Straight Game.
You being one of the creators of hip hop and the culture, what did you think about the whole East Coast West Coast beef between Tupac and Biggie?
Well, for me, the East Coast and West Coast beef, it wasn't. It was more of a media generated phenomenon than it was an actual beef. Because for me, if two guys got a beef, and especially if two guys that got money, and I'll say this for Biggie and Pac, or for anybody that got a beef, if two guys got a beef and they both got money, they could say we could go meet on that little island in the Bahamas and settle this shit. You see what I'm saying? So now it was just something that's going back and forth in the media, but is not being settled. Like, now Tupac is a man, Biggie's a man, they crew, whoever, they could have settled it. But it didn't get settled because it really never was a beef like that. Like they might have, had a little disagreement or whatever it was, and then them not settling the beef, that's when it just kept escalating. You know what I mean? After Tupac, the thing happened in the studio, and then after Biggie, he on the, who shot you, and then that's where it got iffy. But in the beginning, uh, because at that time I lived in the West Coast, I lived in California, I lived in Hollywood, and no matter, like if I was in a club, nobody ran up on me, tell yo, you East Coast, and when we never got no flack, but we never did anyway when we was living in LA, because we had more or less like an OG type of status at that time. But like I said, nobody never ran up on me talking about East Coast, West Coast, or so it was more of a media generated situation than them actually having a beef. But and then sometimes you can get caught up in the moment of all that. You know what I mean? Because that was the beginning of the other kind of fame. It's one fame when you making records and you got hits, and then there's a whole nother kind of fame when did you so and so said about so and so, and maybe I think they more or less got caught up in that than the actual beef itself. Because if you look at the beginning of whatever it was, it had to have started something small. It wasn't, you know what I mean? It wasn't nothing that important. But then as it went along, as time went along, and then so-and-so did so-and-so, and so-and-so said so-and-so, and then they made it look like it was a whole beef, between the East Coast and West Coast, but nobody got hurt other than them two. Like, it wasn't no, you could still come to New York, and basically if you knew the right people, you was good. I lived in LA, I was good. So, so I think it was more, of the media and then them getting caught up in it than an actual beef.
You being from New York, what was your reaction and how did you feel when Tupac got shot the first time at Quad Studios?
Well, when I heard that Pac got shot in the studio, it it kind of, I'm not gonna say I was surprised, but it kind of threw me off because New York hip hop is supposed to be about hip hop. The whole, the gangster thing and the gang banging, that's like some more of a West Coast kind of thing. And I always thought that people in New York, they would just keep it in the music. Like in other words, I would have much rather have seen Biggie and Tupac get on stage and air it out. And then at the end of that would have been a hell of a night. You see what I'm saying? No matter what would have happened. But what more or less wound up happening was, like I said, all that back up. And then when he got shot, I'm like, well, why? I mean, why ain't they keeping it within the music? It's not, why would why would you do something like that? And now this is one of the more beloved guys in hip hop, like on the East and West Coast. Like as far as I'm concerned, when that happened, I was a grown man. It wasn't no side to choose. You know what I mean? Whether I was from New York, I had a chance to meet Biggie when we did the radio show. I met Pac, and I thought I thought they was two intelligent, good guys, and I didn't think that it should have been taken that far to where you're gonna see the brother, and he's in New York. And as far as I'm concerned, when people come to your town, you're supposed to look out. He was, we all same type of folks. So it threw me off that it went to that, went to that level because I mean, I'm from the block. I'm not a hood dude or a street dude. I would have much rather seen them keep it within the music than going like, and now it's my crew, and I would have rather seen them just go on stage and air it all out. But then when it got into that, that's when I knew they took it way too much out of context as far as being not music related, just something that a beef, like a beef or whatever.
Me Against the World, Tupac had a song on there called Old School where he gave you a shout out. What was your reaction when you first heard that song, Old School?
No, that was love, As a matter of fact, and before I heard it, a lot, I cats that call, yeah, Pop shout you out the song, oh yeah, woo, woo. It's love, because I mean, at the end of the day, even though I mean, beginnings of hip hop was, competitive or whatever, but respect is due. So him doing that, it did a lot for me, and it showed the type of dude he was, because he remembered, he went back. Like a lot of the brothers now, like, let's just say, if you got a young brother rapping right now, I'm almost sure almost none of them, either they don't know or they don't care who the fuck I am. I'm almost positive of that. When they actually should, because that's their craft. Pac was one of the brothers that actually, he recognized, the greatness of the game, or the great ones. He recognized, and that goes a long way to show what kind of dude he was, because you when you great, you walk in the footsteps of other great people. When you do great shit, you do what other great people did. You don't do dumb shit. You don't do a lot of that. You do, like I said, you follow in the footsteps of other great people. You know.
People always try to push that narrative that Tupac didn't like New York, or stuff like that. But yeah, if you listen to that song Old School, I mean, he gave a whole lot of love to a whole lot of New York rappers that influenced him, man. So
No, without a doubt, and you know what, and just like I said, that whole East Coast, that's more or less like, because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, minus whatever happened to Pac, like I was saying, when they drew down on him or whatever, he had a lot of love in New York. I mean, right to this day. I mean, you got diehard Tupac fans in New York. It never got to the point where, like, even the whole East Coast West Coast beef, and then motherfucker gonna eat your, yo, man, fuck that nigga pie. It never got to that. That like I said, that was some industry driven shit that was between them and then anybody who bought into it. You know what I mean? Because it, just like I said, I was living on the West Coast. I love the West Coast. I mean, we always had, a hell of a respect level out there. I mean, I used to go to Slauson swap meet, and I'm not saying I would hang around and drink gin and juice with the brothers, but they know who I was, and they let me come and go. And then I'd have a pair of glasses on, and somebody, yo, where you get them glasses from? Girl, you got it from Slauson. You say, you went to Slauson, and these are niggas from LA. You went to Slauson? Yeah. I see a couple of guys speak. Hey, what's up, beloved? What's up, OG? And I keep it moving. Like I said, I'm not out there drinking gin and juice with him, but and just like it's a Pac, he had the utmost respect and love from the brothers and sisters in New York. He was a great, and we didn't look. At least I don't look at it like, okay, yeah, you from the West Coast, so you ain't. It is what it is. If you're doing it, you're doing it.